last spoke to you, it was like I got a string of people that were dealing with some form of assault
Oh
or
yeah.
domestic situation. It was like, and I don't want to blame it on you, like say you're the start, but it seemed like
Open
it
the
went
floodgates for all the trauma.
exactly. Yeah, everyone just
Okay.
come on in. Oh, Rachel was there. Okay, I got an issue. Hands were up in the air, but it just seemed because remember we went over the numbers and said how it's pretty much even with assault
Yeah.
overall for men and women. It's just
Yeah.
women have more of this specific assault, sexual assault, rape, and so
Right.
on, sexual harassment, and then men have more of the physical and the verbal and things like that.
Right.
But
Right.
what a ride it's been since that. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of people in the world, many billions of people, but it's more common than we think, especially when you look at the numbers. The numbers can tell you one picture, but when you come into first person's Rachel, next person this one, next person this one, next person this one, you're thinking, now you're starting to put faces to these numbers and you're like, oh my goodness, it
Yeah.
really is one in,
Mm.
right? You begin to
Hmm.
actually piece it together. That's what happened for me
Exactly.
anyways.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, statistics only help us understand the story so far because, the standard statistic for women is 1 in 3 and 1 in 6 for men. And, what we know about that is it can only be a statistic if somebody's reported. They're only able to track the ones that actually, ended up in court or in some kind of system in order to be noted in that way. And a huge majority of those of us who've experienced trauma don't report. And so there's that factor that, if you're sitting in a room with women, you're sitting in a room with women who've been traumatized. It's kind of as simple as that. And what we're also seeing is because more and more men are starting to come forward and share their stories, they're starting to have more space and finding their voices, that the statistics are starting to trend more towards 1 in 3 for young men, for boys as well. Like the numbers are much closer than we used to think. And so it's a little daunting when you think of it that way. But what it also means is that we have a lot of people then who can collectively come together to heal and make really positive change to try to hopefully, decrease those numbers in the years to come.
Yes, and that's what we want. Similar to a number of things that is happening, let's say in the United States, where everything is now in the open, especially in the last, let's say, year,
Mm-hmm.
right? With the pandemic, it seems like it gave a lot of people more time to reflect on their own issues and to recall and perhaps even relive some of the trauma they went through. And now it's no longer just, okay, my skin color is different than yours. That's why there's an issue. It's no, you and I are from the same neighborhood, but you went through this experience. I went through this. You and
Yeah.
I are in the same age group. We both went through this. And now we're starting to pull more and more together. That's why when I hear things like
Mm-hmm.
your retreat,
Mm-hmm.
that to me is so needed because it's one thing to say, and you probably will speak to this, it's one thing to say, I've been through this. It's another thing to say it in front of people. And it's a third thing to say, I need help with this because I am damaged in this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that for me, the process is always supporting people in, first of all, being able to name and identify their experience. That has to happen. I mean, that stage that we all go through of denial, and I don't want this to be a part of my story, and I want to pretend that everything is okay, I'm fine, nothing to see here, right? Like that's a very real, legit part of the process. And then when you start to like for me in my journey, it was really like in my early 20s when I started to feel like, oh my gosh, like I do not know what I'm doing, and I'm clearly messed up and I'm struggling and I'm hating life, so I guess I have to stop pretending. and having really safe spaces where you can start to talk about what you went through, whether that be one-on-one in, therapy, or whether that be in like a community or a group. Like my Facebook group is a place where I think a lot of people begin that process of saying, yep, I've experienced this too. And yeah, like my group programs that I run twice a year for women, I have another one coming up in August. That's really always so amazing because, first of all, they're taking a leap of faith of like, okay, Rachel, you're pretty much a perfect stranger, but I'm going to jump in to do this work for you. Oh, and I'm also going to jump in with 5 other perfect strangers, and we're going to do what? We're going to talk about our lives and sexual trauma. But what I think is absolutely what I've seen over and over again in those groups, in my monthly support group, and certainly even at the retreat, is that people are dying to have people to talk to who get it. There is a certain kind of code or language that survivors of trauma use. And when you're with other people who don't get it or aren't trauma informed, there's just more explaining you have to do. There's just more emotional labor that you have to do, which, that's fine. But sometimes you want a space where you don't have to do all of that. And so having, those communities that are just survivor centric are really helpful. Yeah, they played a big part in my healing too.